Mike, thanks for joining me here today. Really
Great.
excited to have a conversation with you. And I know we've known each other for a few years, and um, this whole podcasting has given me an opportunity to not only meet new people, but also to reconnect with folks that and give me an excuse to get to know folks that I already presumably know. So here we are, right? Um, Really excited to have you on today and really learn a little bit more about your story. I've heard your story, or at least parts of it, before, and I think
Published
it's
many times.
very relevant to our audience. And it's exciting. It's your traditional sort of um, hero story, right? That's that career arc, that story arc where there's just a struggle, and it's like, man, is this guy gonna make it? And so I want to hear that. I want to share that with the audience here. Anyway, as a quick intro, Mike and I met, and I'm gonna forget the year here, Mike. I want to say it was
17,
2017-ish.
somewhere
Yeah.
around.
Yeah. I was working with a company, one of our clients, and they were. I was working on a search and ended up connecting with you, and you were at Pluralsight at the time, and anyway, I was really fortunate to somehow find you, connect with you, and work with you through that transition as you left Pluralsight for One Click Retail. And it's been a pleasure to get to know you and just keep in touch over the years. But here we are on an official podcast, and have a chance to dig in a little bit deeper. So I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, likewise. It was great being able to know you. And of course, I owe to you my move from one company to another, going into the e-commerce space. So I'm grateful that I got to meet you. And I know that you've helped a lot of my friends finding jobs as well. So I'm excited to be here and talk through my story and hopefully give people that are thinking about career changes some advice and help people that are maybe feeling that struggle that I've been through many times feel like it does get
Yeah.
better, and you're going to continue to have more struggles and you're going to continue to have more things pop up, but it gets better, and through grit and determination and
Mike, are you there?
what I
I
think
think I lost
is
you there for a
even more
second.
important of friendships and people that you can trust around you in your network, you get through it.
Yeah. Hey, Mike, I lost you there for a second. You're
Uh-oh.
back online now. It was probably just the past few seconds, but yeah, just to sort of echo what you said, there's a lot of folks right there that are struggling right now, and I think one thing that many of us are learning is that the struggle is the way. I know it sounds cliche, but I think even during good times when we get comfortable, finding a way to kind of expand our comfort zone, if we become accustomed to that, and that becomes sort of our mode of operation, it could put us in a whole new trajectory on a personal and professional level. And I think that's some of the things that you found. So anyway, I'm excited to just jump right in. Your career, it started. Well, I wouldn't say it started, but in terms of your professional career, it's sort of demarcated by this episode where you were in law enforcement, and you made a very sharp sort of pivot into tech, specifically into tech sales, and you became a tech executive in terms of leading sales for organizations, and then even more recently moving into more of a formal, I guess, entrepreneur, starting your own thing. And so a lot of folks don't make dramatic career pivots, and it seems like you've made several, and there's so much that I think we can learn from that, and would love to just kind of hear your story starting maybe from the beginning, and we can kind of explore that. Let's hear it, Mike.
Yeah, absolutely. So, as you mentioned, major career pivots from law enforcement. I started. I left law enforcement almost 13 years ago. That was my dream career, my dream job.
Mike, are you there?
Uh-oh, am I still losing you? How about now, Eric? Are you there? Is that better?
Mike, yeah, I can hear you now. You're breaking up. I don't know if you have are you on your cell phone?
No, I'm on my computer. I just switched my Wi-Fi, so hopefully that's better.
Okay, all right. We'll give that a
We didn't
try.
Of course, we didn't have any of these problems before the call when we chatted, but
Murphy's Law, that's what happens.
as soon as we start.
Just got to roll with them.
What
Just
I'm
got to roll with
saying
it.
is, I ended my law enforcement career almost 13 years ago. It was my dream job. I was that kid, little kid that, as you ask, hey, what do you want to do when you grow up? Be a firefighter. I want to be a cop. I want to be a doctor. And the wanting to be a cop just never left. I knew I was going to do it. I had all the plans in the world and wanted to go federal and potentially work in the FBI and other jobs like that. So I became a cop and a crime scene investigator as well. Um, so I got to see all the crazy dead bodies and some nutty stories like that
Oh,
we'll
wow.
save for another time. But what happened was I realized that maybe that wasn't my path. Right, I started to get it out of my system, and then I started to realize that maybe it wasn't the best thing for me. Pay was very low. Politics was not what I expected to be in law enforcement. So I had to make this decision of do I stick it out? Do I stay? Which becomes really tough because you become vested in the system and you become vested in the retirement system. So I had to make that tough choice of do I go? Do I try to get into something new with the very little skills that I had and that I believed that I had? How do you talk a tech company into hiring a person that was the whole job was just law enforcement, being a cop, where everyone just thinks you just go around, beat people up and write tickets? Like, how is that going to translate into this job? So I got extremely lucky. I went to a tech hiring fair, met a company, met with some of their HR team. And my whole process was really talking about, yeah, I'm a police officer, but when you think about it, I have to sell all day long, right? I've got to sell this guy into the idea of letting me put handcuffs on him. I've got to sell this guy into not fighting me, but instead going quietly, right? I've got to constantly try to talk my way through things. We used to call it verbal judo, based on a book that was written that talks about, how do you de-escalate situations? How do you make sure that people feel heard, but that they also do what you tell them to do? And so that was really how I tried to portray myself. Like, yeah, I can sell. I do it all day long. This is just a little bit different sell, but I can figure it out. I can do it. I've got it. So they took a chance on me and they hired me, and I was so excited. I mean, I remember my first day going into this office, and it was the very stereotypical brown carpet, gray cubicles sales environment. But I was thrilled. I was so excited, and I kept thinking, I've got it. I made it. A lot of the cops I worked with, great men and women, but they would tease me and say, you'll be back, right? We'll see you in 12 months or 6 months. You'll be back. We know you're going to come back. And so I kept telling myself, like, no, I've got this. I've got to push through no matter how hard it is. As far as pay, I was making the exact same amount of money. I was hoping for commissions and the ability to make a variable number on top of that. But as a brand new person trying to figure it out, that did not come easily. And so very quickly, as we call it, the honeymoon phase ended. And I realized that this was going to be extremely difficult. I wasn't making any sales. I had some great people that worked with me. One guy who was kind of my in-field territory account rep living in Connecticut named John Farmer, greatest guy ever. He always had my back. He was really trying to help me, but it was hard. It was a slog. And I remember many times thinking, I'm not going to make it. Like, all these cops that told me I'd be back, they're going to laugh at me as I come strolling back through the door. And if you don't know this, you have a certain amount of years to return to law enforcement to be able to keep your certification. Otherwise, if you come back, you have to go all the way back through the police academy and do it over again. And so I was also grappling with this. Do I keep up my certification? Do I go be part-time somewhere for a little while? Do I become a reserve officer somewhere so that just in case I've got to fall back on this, I've got something to fall back on?
How much time did you have?
And I think if I remember right, it was you had to, after 2 years, if you didn't hit a certain amount of hours a year, you lose that certification.
Okay. So you would have
And
had to start
so
all over.
all over again. Yeah, going back
Yeah.
through the police academy, starting from the bottom. I mean, it would have been doable, but it would have been hard. And it would have been expensive too, because if I didn't get a police department to sponsor me, I would have had to pay out of pocket to go through it again.
Yeah. So you're
And I
talking about
didn't have any.
burning the boats here, right? Like,
Burning the boats, exactly,
yeah.
which is one of my favorite sayings that I hear more and more lately, that I'm glad you brought up, because I was thinking that same thing. And I had that one of my first burning the boats moment, because I had to think, do I let this certification die and know, like, it's very, very much more unlikely that I'm going to return. So I did. I let my certification lapse. And I made that conscious decision of, I've just got to keep pushing and pushing. But the problem is after I burned the boats, instead of things getting easier, they just got harder, right? I got demoted. I got turned into what they called a floater rep, where I kind of floated around to all the different reps in the territory and helped assist all of them. And I just kept thinking, this is just getting worse and worse. Like, I can't figure this out. And I'd have little wins here and there. It would kind of keep my head afloat. But then one day during all of this that was going on, I'd basically been demoted. I was thinking, shoot, I'm not going to have police career to go back on unless I go back to the academy. I'm driving home. At the time I lived in South Ogden. I was driving back from kind of like the West Valley area. I'm on what's called 89. It's a bench highway up in Layton, and my car broke down. Middle winter, it was freezing cold, and my little poor crummy Nissan Sentra, no offense to anybody that drives a Nissan Sentra, but that thing was struggling already. It broke down, and I was like, I've got no money to pay for this thing. I've got no way to get it home. So I'm sitting in this parking lot of this gas station in the freezing cold, watching my little Nissan Sentra get towed. And it's funny, I look at this picture now today and I see that sign on the door that says no checks. And I was like, that is even more perfectly fit how my life was right there. I had no checks. I had no car that was working. And this was, I thought this was going to be my lowest of lows, but I wasn't even close. I was nowhere near my lowest of lows at this time. It just continued to snowball from here. It became, harder and harder. Not long after this picture was taken, my dad died on top of all of it. So my career was struggling. I lost my dad. And as I was driving back out to go visit my family close to his funeral, we were planning my dad's funeral. I parked this little car after getting it fixed, and I noticed the back tire was so bad and bald that it was bulging out. Like, I probably couldn't have made it another few hundred miles on it. So now on top of all this, I thought, I've now got to buy 4 new tires on top of the last repair, on top of, my dad dying. All of this all together was happening within a couple month time frame.
So Mike, just to stop here for a second, you had this dream of becoming a law enforcement officer. You actually did it, and you were doing this for what, 2 or 3 years? And
3 years, yeah, almost 3 years on the dot.
Okay, so 3 years, and then at some point you were like, "This is not fulfilling for me. This is not what I thought it was, perhaps." And you were like, "Okay, I need to make a change." And you walk me through a little bit about just kind of what was your thought process there, because so often we think that we're in the pits. What I'm doing right now is just it's not making any sense. I'm not finding any fulfillment. I'm not happy. I don't like what I'm doing. And to decide at that point that I should do something different, it seems easy to make that decision, but you are saying no to something and you're saying yes to something else. But maybe just walk me through that a little bit, because there's a lot of folks right now that are going through that similar situation where maybe they have a career that they feel is dead end, or there's just something that they don't like about it, or that I can't see myself doing this for the next 10 or 15, 20 years or whatever. And what gave you the confidence to be like, I'm going to say no to this and I'm going to say yes to this? Like, you're effectively closing a door to one thing that you thought was sort of a childhood dream for so many years, and then now you're opening the door to something else that you felt was kind of uncertain. And then, as you started getting into it, you were like, oh man, did I make the right decision? Like, you just walk me through that, the decision-making process, and how did you find the resolve, right?
Mm-hmm.
To know that you were on the right track. Maybe you didn't know you were on the right track, but
yeah, looking back now, I think, oh yeah, I knew what I was doing. I got on the right track, but truthfully, I was terrified. I thought that I had absolutely made a wrong decision. And looking back now too, it makes a lot more sense of the whole concept of the sunken cost fallacy, right? It's like you've spent so much time and you've spent so much training and so many hours, so many years doing the same thing, or being in a certain career. And a lot of times it's hard because you think, well, if I move on from this, I've lost all that, right? Has that just now all become pointless? And I grappled with that back then too. And now looking back, it makes more sense. But it was hard because I mean, when you think about a law enforcement career, yeah, I had the police academy. I'd sunken time and money into that. I've sunken time and money into even sometimes my own equipment that I carried, uniforms, and when I wasn't making a lot of money, getting a uniform or two or three of them dry cleaned that was a hard pill to swallow because it was very, very expensive. And so I kept thinking back to all of this where I'd sunken so much time and so much of my passion into this, and then realizing this isn't making me happy, this isn't the right thing, was terrifying because I didn't have any other skills. I did not think at the time that I could do anything else. I kept thinking, there's no way. I don't know how to do this. I don't know how to do sales. Someone's trying to explain to me what, when I started this job, someone's trying to originally explain to me what cloud storage is and data backup and disaster recovery. And I was like, it was right over my head. I'm like, I'm going from a guy who knows how to read Miranda rights and handcuff people and fight people and shoot a target, to going to that type of conversation was terrifying. It was really hard. And so thinking back of how I made that decision was, for me, looking back now, I can say it was easy, but it was really happiness. Right? Was I really going to be happy for 10 more years? Like, I just could not imagine being miserable in a career and spending, half of my life doing this, because it's not just when you're a cop, it's not just like you're working, a regular 9 to 5. You're working crazy hours, you're working holidays, you're missing out on things. Oftentimes you're also spending a lot of hours in trainings. Even when you're not working, you're doing shooting training, tactical trainings. And that thought of doing this forever and being this miserable just outweighed any of that fear. Now, going back to it now and learning what I went through during these times, I probably would have second guessed myself even more and said, you know what, no, I'm not going to go, because I can't go through this. I can't deal with broken down cars and feeling this feeling of complete despair, like I had failed. But at the time, it was a more easy decision because I didn't know what was coming, right? One thing that always drives me so crazy that people say is, the grass isn't always greener. I get that, right? It's true. You may not always go to a greener pasture, but I disagree with it, because the next step you might take might not be greener grass, but it's going to lead you to the next greener grass, right? You're going to continue to climb. You're going to continue. You may have gone into a career or gone to a company that maybe you regretted, but there's no way you didn't take away from that moment something that taught you a new skill, or taught you how you as a leader want to act, because you maybe met somebody that you emulated, that you really liked the things they did. But then you also meet people, you meet leaders that you learn you don't want to be a lot like. I've met both, where I've figured that out, and I've found ways and processes that need to be better. And so I get being scared, and I get not wanting to make a change and fearing that the grass isn't going to be greener. Maybe it won't be, but it's going to lead you to that next best thing, that next green pasture. And my advice to people would be, don't jump to conclusions. Obviously, do your research and be prepared, but don't be afraid to make a change. Don't be afraid to say, I want to be happy in my career. I want to have joy. I want to be able to provide for my family, or be able to travel the world and love what I do and like what I do. Don't get yourself stuck in that loop where you feel like there's no way out. There is a way out. It's not going to be easy. It's definitely going to be hard, but that's, why I wanted to come on here, because I want to be that resource to other people too, that can come to me, and even if it's just advice, I'll give as much as I can, or talking through an idea when it comes to some type of idea, of an entrepreneurial idea somebody has. There's has to be more of this that happens, because this picture here is not the only struggle and trial I went through. This time in this company was not the only time that I struggled. Like, this was one of many where I've gone through times that I've questioned myself. I've questioned my skills. I've questioned whether or not I just been faking it through this whole thing and getting lucky, or do I actually know what I'm doing, right? It happens, and that's okay. I think we're all going to go through those times.
You're going back to the the whole sunk cost, opportunity cost, sunk cost fallacy, right? That is a huge sort of weight that keeps people from trying new things or moving on to a different career or considering it, even switching from one job to another. Right? I've invested so much time in this company. I have all this social or professional capital locked up within this company or this career path or whatnot. But it sounds like you were able to get past that. Was there any realization about what you've learned in the journey of being a law enforcement officer that you were like, oh man, I learned this stuff as a law enforcement officer, but they totally applied what I'm doing now, in sales? And it sounds like there was some connection there, but maybe you can elaborate on that a little bit.
Yeah, I think a ton. When I look back, during my law enforcement career, and even careers after that, this company I was at here after I left law enforcement, um, the biggest thing that I think I learned, and I still am not great at it, and I've got to continue to work on it. But for me, as a leader, as a hiring manager, as a friend, the thing that I look for in people that I learned throughout my law enforcement career and after is empathy. I have a massive respect for anybody that can show empathy, because we are all going through something. There are so many people that had no idea that my car broke down that I worked with. There's so many people that had no idea that my dad passed away during the exact same time. Nobody knew that, when I went to go have lunch with a buddy, I got my credit card declined at Culver's for like a hamburger and fries. I mean, you, you just don't know what somebody else is going through. You don't know the type of struggles and the hardships that somebody else is going through, and the feelings that they're having of that inadequacy, or that they're feeling like they are, what's the imposter syndrome that we all
Mm-hmm.
struggle with sometimes. Verbal judo had kind of five major topics, and I would the book Verbal Judo, I would suggest, if you haven't read it, read Verbal Judo. It's an incredible book, but it talks about really five major topics. People feel the need to be respected. People would rather be asked than told. People have a desire to know why. People prefer to have options over threats, and people want to have a second chance. And as I've seen all of those five things throughout my career, they come back constantly, and I feel the same way. But I think back to all the times that I've had the opportunity to hire somebody, or I've had the unfortunate opportunity to let someone go, or to put them on a plan. And I've looked back at these things and thought, have I made sure to show those things? Have I made sure that, the people that work with me, do they feel respected? Do the people that I work with, and the people that report to me, do I help them understand the why? So many times I ask somebody to do something, or we ask somebody to do something. We don't think, are we really explaining why? Or are we making people feel like they're not being respected in that way, and they don't matter enough to know our reasons or the purposes? And then making sure that you ask. Sometimes I think a lot of times it's like with our kids, we tell what to do instead of ask, right? It's like, we used to have a joke
Yep.
when I was a cop. It was you got three chances. I'm gonna ask you, I'm gonna tell you, and then I'm gonna make you, right? But I think a lot of times we skip right to the I'm just gonna tell you to do something, instead of asking people, hey, will you do this for me? Would you mind doing this? And here's why. And then giving options over threats. A lot of times I think we go back to that again. You can, of course, easily apply this to law enforcement, but we act like this sometimes in the workplace. We act like this when we're dealing with people, and then making sure people have the option for a second chance. People make mistakes. People go through hard times, like I said, when they've got family things going on. They might be going through a divorce. They might be going through a family loss. They might be going through financial struggles, and like, we want people to have that second chance. If they make a mistake, don't write them off right away. Give them that opportunity to have that second chance. That right there, that
Yeah.
would scare you if that was parked behind your car, wouldn't it? That picture.
Oh yeah.
look a little
Yeah,
younger.
no,
And,
yeah. What year was this? Roughly
oh, geez.
2011 there?
Yep, 2011. Yeah. I was
Yeah.
actually taken on my last day by another officer I worked with.
Oh, this is on your last day. Okay.
That was my last day.
Man. No, when you're talking about empathy and some of the lessons that you've learned, as a law enforcement officer, I think all of that really, those are lessons that we can apply not just professionally, not just as a law enforcement officer, not as a salesperson, not as an executive, not as an entrepreneur, but across the board, even personally, right? Because it's about human relations and human connection, right? And that's a common thread across everything in our life, right? And not just empathy for others, but also empathy for ourselves. Right now, there's a lot of folks that are beating themselves up. Let me tell you, there's a lot of folks right now that are beating themselves up. A lot of folks, most of us, because of how much time we spend in our occupation or in our career, we really identify with that. I am a
Yeah.
law enforcement officer. I am a recruiter. I am a salesperson. I am this. I am that. And when that occupation maybe ceases to exist in our day to day because we're in a transition or we're trying to find our next pivot or pivoting our company or our product idea, we lose a piece of ourselves and we start to beat ourselves up. And I've seen this a lot recently, partially in myself, but a lot in the people that I work with, right? That are struggling to find their next calling or their next career or even just their next job, right? And so, empathy for yourself, right? That maybe your struggle with losing a job is not necessarily a reflection on you, but but how you responded to it, how you respond to it is a reflection on you, and that's what you have control over. But yeah, I think that call to empathy is really, we could all use a little lesson in that, maybe a big lesson.
Yeah, and I like the way you say that. I often think about empathy and having empathy towards others, but yeah, empathy, I don't think I do a good job at empathy towards myself either. I think that's a really good point because I've got friends right now who have been in recent layoffs. There's been seems like a lot lately, and it's hard. You take that personally. It's hard not
Yeah,
to, and you will go through the stages of grief. You'll blame yourself, or you'll think you're not enough. You'll go through that imposter syndrome, and all I can say is, uh, be easy on yourself. Continue to work hard, continue to learn, and yeah, there's gonna be times like I've had multiple times in my career where I've been in the highest highs, and the same exact company has brought me to the lowest of lows, where I'm on top of the world and thinking that I've got it all figured out, and then things can change in a heartbeat. Nobody's got it figured out, and even though you might look on LinkedIn, and it makes it sometimes look like everybody is killing it and everybody is happy and everybody's got everything they could possibly ask for, it's not true. Everybody's going through something and everyone's having a hard time through their career, and all we can do is be there for one another. But remember that those I think those times, and this is cliche, but it's true. I think those times make you stronger. I mean, going through those things have
yeah,
made a world of difference in my career, more than when things were awesome and things were going smoothly. I rarely have learned life lessons and how I should treat others as well as myself through those times. I've learned that through the times that I have been scared and stressed and worried about, was I going to have a job tomorrow? That's when I really knew myself and what I was made of.
yeah. I mean, talking a little bit about grief, right? When you lose something, going through that grieving process, I would imagine that when you lost your father during this time, I mean, you had to go through a grieving process, and when you lose a job, you have to go through a grieving process. Even if you're just transitioning by way of your own volition,
Yeah.
you still go through a grieving process because you're losing something. You might be gaining something as well, but there's still a loss there. There's a change, and to the extent that we don't deny that process of grieving, it gives us an opportunity to feel that and to even find more resolve for the decisions or the path that we're starting to take. So you transitioned into sales. You had some challenges. Obviously, you had some personal challenges, but even just finding your fit, it took some time to sort of develop that confidence. Walk me through, like, how did you develop the confidence? what was that like? What are some of the things that you did to find that, I mean, to build that confidence in yourself that you made the right decision, but also you could do this and you could be successful at it? How did you find that confidence?
I think where it all started for me was finding you're not ever going to be perfect at everything, right? I think that sometimes is really hard because when I first transitioned and went from cop to sales guy, I did I lose you by the way? Oh no, I didn't. Okay,
I'm
good.
here.
Um,
Yeah.
I it was almost like I was trying to take on everything at once. I wanted to be good at all of it, right? I wanted to be able to find leads. I wanted to be able to close leads quickly. I wanted to be able to find the biggest deals. And it was like I was trying to take on too much. And I think that this is very sales specific, the way I'm going to give this scenario, but this is, I think, for everybody's career. Find that thing that you can be really good at and become an expert at. That doesn't mean ignore everything else. But what I found in my skill set was I was dang good at hunting and finding, like spending time in sales navigator, in emailing, in phone calling, in that stuff. I found that I could get people to the table. I could get somebody to take a meeting. I could get somebody to come in and listen to what I had to say. And that was where I wished, if I could go back in time, I wished I would have focused on that more right from the beginning instead of trying to be the best at everything. I think if you can find those things, the other things will start to come more easily and you'll start to be able to piece together the entire puzzle. But if you can be that one very good expert at a certain thing, it's going to start to get easier. Because now I look back at my career and that has helped me now jump and leapfrog into new roles, into new companies, because people saw me as a really good hunter, right? If I couldn't do anything else, I could hunt and I could find deals and opportunities to come into the pipeline. And I've kept that skill. Even though I've moved into leadership roles, even though I've moved into having teams under me, I still get overjoyed sometimes. And I shouldn't say this. Sometimes I get more excited when somebody agrees to talk to me off of a cold outreach than I do when a deal closes. Because I'm like, man, that took a lot of hard work and a lot of perfect communication and the right types of reach outs and a whole bunch of different ways to get that person to finally say yeah. Because you and I and everybody on this call and listening knows you get hit up for sales opportunities and people trying to sell you something 1,000 times a day through email and LinkedIn and phone calls. And so I loved that, as I could find that one thing and I could become an expert at it. And then I started realizing people around me and other people that I gravitated towards that were the same way, but with other skills. Like, this person is incredible at product marketing. There was a person at Pluralsight that absolutely, I loved him because he knew what he was good at, and that was product marketing. And he did an incredible job at it. Find those things that you know that you can do good at and spend time learning it better, training, taking online courses, meeting with other people that know how to do it or that love how to do it or that are trying to learn how to do it. And, polish that skill, because that's something you're going to always be able to hang your hat on to say, I am very, very good at that. And you will be able to 100% build a career around an expertise if you spend time doing it, and don't always spend time just trying to be the best at every single solitary thing, because that's why we have others. That's why we lean on others, because we don't always need to be that one, and we don't always think we need to carry all of it on our backs and the whole process and the whole job on our shoulders.
That's you make a good point about going deep and becoming an expert in an area that you're interested or passionate about. There's a lot of folks out there right now that are they're sort of jack of all trades, and they don't know how to focus what it is that they're good at and sort of message that. It's a challenge, right? I think a lot of folks deal with that because they feel like they could do a lot of different things, but what are you really good at, or what do you want to be good at, right?
Yeah.
What does it mean, in sales, right? Sales is, a lot of times when we hear sales, we think about sometimes somebody trying to pitch something or something like that. But maybe you could tell me, Mike, what does sales mean to you, and what are some of the principles that you've learned in sales that are just, have helped you make a better personal and professional life for yourself, right? There's a quote, right? Sell is human. It's human to sell, something to that effect.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I'm just curious. Yeah, what does sales mean to you?
Yeah. I think because of my transition from law enforcement into that tech arena, sales definitely means something different to me. I see sales as um, really that ability to speak to people. How do you communicate to people? Do you ask the right questions? Do you listen? I mean, we so often in sales think about all of the qualifying questions is what we call them, right? Are you making sure that whoever you're talking to has budget? Are they the authority? Do they have a need? What's their timeline like? Right? You're asking all those questions, and I think sometimes we forget that that same type of skill set can fit within our family life, within our friends. Like, are we really truly understanding the people that we're talking to? Do we really know what their needs are? Right? It's not that I'm trying to get money from them, but I want to know what my friends' needs are. Like, what drives them? What do they care about? I
Yeah, this
want to
goes back to
know.
empathy, right?
Yeah, exactly. I want to know, am I listening? Am I hearing when they tell me things? Am I capturing the things that are important? Am I understanding and really truly knowing that person? Sales, they often say sales is mostly listening, because if you're always just trying to pitch your product, you're just trying to talk, you're not really hearing what people are really truly needing. And early in my career, I didn't understand that as well. And I feel like I'm getting better at it. But we still always catch ourselves doing all the talking. I feel it right now. I'm doing all the talking. But we do sometimes get to that point where we're doing the talking, we're not listening. But what you'll find is that through a sales career, the more you listen, the more those people that you have sold to in the past, like, you can go back to them, and not always to sell them something new. But I go back to people that I've dealt with years ago that we still stay in contact. We still are friends. I'll still ping them and ask them about ideas. When I'm building, something new, a new software, I have this network I can go back to and say, "Tell me about this. Tell me, what do you think about this product?" Sales is a hard, grinding job that a lot of people don't truly understand. Uh, but it also, I think, creates some of the strongest bonds between the people you're selling to, the salesperson, but then also people inside the company. If you take time to do that, like if you take time to know the marketing team, to know the product marketing team, to know product, to know customer success and support, you become an integral part in the company. You become that lifeblood that makes sure that all of those units work cohesively and perfectly together, because you're the one that's listening. You're the one that knows what the customers and potential customers are asking for. And you can create some of the most incredible, lifelong friendships that you could ever imagine. One of I should say, one of my truly best friend was made through working at Pluralsight. I was an AE, he was my BDR, and he and I are best friends still today. We start companies together. We've worked together in multiple companies. He goes somewhere, he brings me along. I go somewhere, I bring him along, because I trust him and I know his skill set. And I would not have gotten that again if I hadn't learned those skills of being empathetic, listening, truly wanting to understand what he wanted in his career and his life. And he does the same thing for me.
Mike, what do you think are some of the big mistakes that? So there's a lot of folks right now that are forced to be in a sales position as they go out into the job market, and they are basically selling themselves or trying to sell themselves, right? They're trying to market themselves, trying to position themselves, trying to present themselves, trying to listen and ask questions in an interview, for example. What do you think are some of the big mistakes that some of these folks may be making as they have to start wearing the sales hat that they might not be accustomed to?
I think for me, when I'm hiring, when I'm looking at sales positions, the red flags for me is, and it kind of depends on the sales position, but if I'm looking for somebody that I need to go out and, like I mentioned, hunt and find and get deals in, one of my biggest red flags that worries me about a salesperson is that ability to do so. Because sales, a lot of times people think sales, that's exciting. Uh, Marketing is going to have leads that come to me and I'm going to close them, right? The problem is normally that doesn't happen, right? Most of the time it is you have to be the one to go out and find the people that are going to talk to you. You've got to be the one that goes out and does that hunting, lead generation. And that's not easy. That's a really, really, really hard and sometimes fruitless activity. And so I think some of the mistakes people make is thinking that, sales is going to be easy, uh, and that, they're going to be able to get leads, or they're going to be able to get marketing to be able to help them. Where I get very impressed with the salesperson is if you can go into the conversation instead and say, I can go out and hunt. But what's marketing doing? How can I best work with marketing so that we are on the same page, and that I'm driving 50% of leads and marketing is driving 50% of leads? And when marketing struggle, I can step in and try to help and lift them up. And when I'm struggling this month, marketing can come in and help lift me up. And how are we working together, right? Because I see a lot of times where new companies, especially new tech startups, first thing they want to do, well, they've got a product ready, they're excited to sell, they go hire a VP of sales, and they've got no marketing plan, they got no product marketing plan, no one understands how to use the product. And so the salesperson almost always flounders because they don't have the support, they don't have the right types of tools and product um, and marketing help to be able to tell the right story to potential customers. So my
Yeah.
advice is making sure that you have sales, marketing, product very, very in tune and aligned with each other. Um, that everybody in the organization too is thinking all the time about revenue, right? That is the driving factors. How are we getting revenue? When you close a deal, and it's called, if you ever want to look this up, it's called the Helix model. But in this model, it kind of talks about how when you close a deal, you automatically create three new leads, right? You create a renewal event, you create a lead for an expansion opportunity, and you create another lead for a new logo, because you're going to want to have that new customer be a voice for you, introduce you to other people, do some type of customer advocacy for you because they're happy and they want to, they're willing to spread that. And so thinking through, how the organization all is revenue focused. And so if I can meet a salesperson that has that broader vision, that understands and asks me more questions around, hey, how does this all work together? Because if you're just thinking singular focused, I'm a sales guy, I'm going to go sell, that doesn't always work. In fact, it rarely works. You need to
Yeah.
have everybody speaking the same language, and you have to have a support network of everybody there to be on the same page that revenue is our most important thing. And if you can do that, you're going to be successful. But I rarely see that, which is surprising.
Yeah, you know what I like about that is, this idea of having a group of folks that are supporting, and in the example that you described is between sales and marketing. When I think about that job seeker out there that is, they're trying to market themselves, they're trying to position themselves, they're doing this networking thing that a lot of folks are just frustrated with and finding fruitless. Part of it is, they're going into it with a single mindset of, I need to close a deal, which is effectively get a job offer, right? And when they're networking, they're so solely focused on that. They're not really thinking about, how they could partner with folks that they're networking with that might not be able to give them, a job lead or an immediate job lead or an immediate job offer at that time, but they could partner with them in a way that there could be sort of a mutual benefit, and maybe not just a short-term benefit, but maybe a longer-term benefit. And so, that feels like there's a lot of parallels between what you're saying, Mike, and in terms of sort of building those relationships across, between sales and marketing, and even maybe client success or what have you. But I think a lot of that just translates into the job seeker that's trying to do it all themselves, but they need to sort of build that sort of team, so to speak, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
so,
absolutely.
yeah, that those yeah, and when I think about it, it's like, how do job seekers partner with a recruiter, right? Actually, we're talking about that end of this week in a mini series that we're doing about, how to I'm titling it "The Recruiter Revealed," right? Because there's a lot of the recruiters are very enigmatic and a huge source of frustration for job seekers, and so we're trying to shed some light on kind of behind the scenes there. Anyway,
Yeah.
so
And I think,
so you
I would
go ahead.
I was just yeah, I would give the advice too, if you're out there actively seeking a job in a sales career, especially, get creative. Use the same type of processes and thoughts that you would go to try to find a prospect. to get into a company you're interested in, right? Go to G2crowd.com and look up the software company that you're trying to get a job for. See what their customers are saying about the product. See who their customers are. Reach out to their customers. Say, hey, I noticed you're using XYZ software. Tell me more about what your experience has been with it. Read through there, look through there. You can take an entire G2 review, all of them. You can put that in Chat GPT. You can ask Chat GPT, hey, show me the top pros and cons out of all this. And then you can take that back to a job, this XYZ company. Say, I'm really noticing that, these are some of the things that you're seeing. I'm really noticing that if we helped with prospects, or we helped current customers with this problem, they'd be much happier. Go reach out to their product support or their product marketing, their product teams on LinkedIn and say, I'm really love the software you're building. I'd love to learn more about it. Go learn about them, learn about their company, and you can then go back with some incredible insights that would absolutely, as a hiring manager, that would catch my attention.
Yeah, no, I love it. The creativity there, right? And, especially if you're in sales, you're using that and leveraging that for your own job search and career management. It's huge.
Absolutely.
We're kind of winding down a little bit on the time here, Mike, but I do want to make sure that we're talking a little bit about, your transition from, being a tech sales exec into more creative expression through entrepreneurship, and kind of what your journey in that vein has looked like. If you want to talk a little bit more about that.
Yeah, absolutely. So being an entrepreneur and trying to come up with new ideas is very difficult and very expensive. But what I often tell people, I hear this all the time, where people are like, I want to be an entrepreneur. How do I be an entrepreneur? How do I come up with an idea? Where mine have come from is really all the experience, right? I tell people this all the time. Like, a lot of times you got to get into the workforce, you got to move to these other companies. You bounce around sometimes. That's not a bad thing always. You start to realize, though, when you start to see where there are gaps, where there are broken processes, and that's normally where my ideas have come up with. And that's normally where, ideas and things have come up that I've said, this is something that is going to help people. This is something that can help a broken process. The most recent one, I mentioned my best friend and somebody that I've worked with a lot. He and I have recently started building a company called PromptView, which is specifically around helping to align marketing, sales, product marketing, all so that they're speaking the same language. And none of that would ever happen or ever come up or have come to our minds if it hadn't been for us being in the workforce, being in it, seeing the dysfunction, seeing the problem, and then going, okay, how can we fix this? How can we figure this out? And then, I'll tell people too, if you do have those ideas, don't be afraid to talk to people about them. Don't be afraid to get feedback. I think a lot of people go, I'm not saying anything because I don't want so-and-so to steal it, right? I get that to a point, but you've got to get out there. You've got to ask people, figure out what people like about it, what people dislike about an idea, and then go start using resources like Upwork. Go hire a developer. Go find somebody that can help start you to, start building it with you. Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to jump in. If you think you've got an amazing idea, don't be afraid to go start. And if you can, this will be my other piece of advice. If you can, not that there's anything wrong with this, but if you can, don't give equity away, and don't try to immediately just go raise money, right? I think we're in this weird mindset nowadays where if you have an idea, everybody's first thought is, okay, I got to go raise capital. And a lot of times you do. Sometimes you just need to grow. But it's funny that that's automatically our instant thought, that we got to raise capital first. And I would say, as long as you can, avoid that and try to build it yourself. But you will come up with those ideas as you start to see. I mean, there's probably tons of people that listen to this and they're listening and will listen later, that have an idea, that have found a broken process, that have thought, man, this could be so much better. And that's where those ideas, that's where the light bulbs will come.
Yeah, awesome. And tell me a little bit about PromptView. What are you doing there, and how can people find out more about it? And
so PromptView is really cool. We're excited about it. It doesn't exist in the marketplace today, but kind of think of PowerPoint, right? You've got PowerPoint, you have presenter mode, and then you've got your notes, right? So you can, when you share your screen, you can see one screen, then you have your notes. Kind of think of PromptView a little bit like that, where we can actually overlay prompts directly on any software, on any site, on any tech software, any dashboards, where you can actually have customized prompts that help your sales, your pre-sales, your BDRs, product marketing, know exactly where to navigate and what is the things that you should be talking about in that on that page in the portal, in a certain tool. But then what's cool is when you screen share while you're seeing all this and while you're able to see the prompts, you're able to see and remember what certain things of your software are for, as well as asking it and AI knowing if you get a question from a prospect like, hey, can you guys do this? And you don't know, you can ask PromptView and it will show you where on your software that exists. But when you screen share, the people you're showing it to don't see any of the prompts. They just see your clean version of your software.
Yeah, nice. Nice. It feels like there might be some applications there too with, a job seeker that might be just going through their resume, virtually.
Absolutely. You could kind of like I mentioned G2 crowd. You could go to somebody's dashboard or get ask access for somebody you're interviewing with. Say, hey, I want to be able to see your product. Can I get access to it? You could build your own custom prompts and do a pitch to them and show them how much you know already, and really blow a hiring manager's mind.
I love it. And I'm sure there's a lot of folks that are not doing or thinking, even thinking in that vein right now. So,
Yeah.
Mike, it's been awesome catching up with you. Thank you for sharing your
Likewise.
story. A lot of gems here that could be shared, that could be useful to a lot of folks that are managing their career, managing their search. And so really appreciate it. How can folks connect with you?
LinkedIn's probably the best. I would love to connect with people. Love to talk about if you're looking for a job, if you are needing advice on resume, if you're needing advice on how to capture a hiring manager's attention. I would love to help. I would love to be a resource, love to be able to assist in any way I can with introductions as well. I may not always have the perfect advice, but I am absolutely willing to help where I can to help you, to help your career in any way possible.
All right. Much appreciated, Mike. All right.
Absolutely.
Thank you, everybody. I'm going to sign off. This will be published to Spotify in the next day or so, and we'll talk to you all soon.
Thanks, Eric. Thanks, everyone.